I know that there are a lot of Airstream renovators that if they hear this, they're going to be like, are you nuts? But no, there's something really relaxing about moving that polisher over the skin. I love the work of it. I put my headphones in, I listen to podcasts, I listen to music and just go.
Even if you've never heard of an Airstream, you probably know what they look like. These iconic travel trailers from the 1950s have become a hot commodity for renovation into beautiful, lightweight tiny homes. Welcome to the Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast, the show where you learn how to plan, build, and live the tiny lifestyle. I'm your host, Ethan Waldman, and this is episode 212 with Kate Oliver. Kate is the author of the new book, The Modern Caravan, telling the stories of beautiful Airstream conversions and the people who live in them through words and gorgeous photographs. Kate and her wife and daughter started off their journey by renovating an Airstream and living on the road for several years. I'm excited to share our conversation with you, where we get into the nitty-gritty of finding and renovating a vintage Airstream trailer. Let's face it, most tiny house dwellers want their tiny homes to be small, but not uncomfortable. That means reliable, unlimited hot water. Precision Temp's propane-fired hot water heaters reliably provide unlimited hot water, and they're specifically designed with tiny homes in mind. In fact, the NSP 550 model was installed in my own tiny home, and the reason I chose it was because it did not require a large hole in the side of my home like other RV hot water heaters. Instead, it mounts discreetly through the floor of the tiny house and works quietly and reliably. Right now, Precision Temp is offering $50 off any unit plus free shipping when you use the coupon code THLP. So head over to precisiontemp.com and use the coupon code THLP at checkout. All right, I am here with Kate Oliver. Kate Oliver is a designer, writer, photographer, and author of the book, The Modern Caravan, Stories of Love, Beauty, and Adventure on the Open Road. She lives on the road with her wife and daughter for 4 years in a vintage Airstream and is now renovating a small house and studio in the woods. She and her wife are the founders of The Modern Caravan, a company that builds and inspires caravan renovations. Together, they have converted many caravans into beautiful, functional rolling homes. Kate Oliver, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I've been really excited to have you on. I have a copy of The Modern Caravan, and it's a really beautiful book. I really enjoyed looking through it, reading the stories of the various people you profiled, and just the beautiful photography.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a long time coming, actually. Been working on it for 4 years. So to have it and be able to hold it and share it with people, it's a little surreal.
Yeah, I'll bet. I'm curious, I want to kind of rewind back, before you started the company and all that. How did you end up in a caravan? Or I guess my question is written as, how did you end up in an Airstream? But I've noticed that you've used the word caravan, and that seems intentional.
It is very intentional, yeah. But to back up and answer your question, in 2014, like early 2014, before hashtag van life, my wife and I had really been questioning the way that we were living our lives. And we were talking about what it meant to live an intentional and purposeful life and what that would look like for us. And so we defined it first. We said that what we wanted was more time together as a family. We wanted time to create. Both of us are artists. We wanted to feel like we could experience things. We were in this tiny town and in Kentucky, and we were just like, there's got to be more. And, we also each had individual reasons. For me, I had a really rough childhood, and my early adult years were really, really difficult for me. And I was just sort of emerging from all of that and just like, wait, like, what do I want? Who am I? I had these really big questions that I wanted to answer. And my wife she had sort of followed the checklist. She had done all of the things that she was supposed to do, get the job and buy the house. And she wasn't satisfied in that. And so like all of those reasons, it wasn't like there was just this one, there were many. individual and shared reasons. But there wasn't like this answer. We just were like, we want something else that's not
Hmm.
this. And when we decided that we wanted to travel, it was me. I found this photographer named Michael Newstead, and he was traveling with his band, and they were touring, and he was taking all these beautiful film photographs, and I got sucked into the imagery, and then I was looking, and somebody maybe in the band had a little girl that they were bringing with them on tour, and I was like, "Oh, wait, okay, we could do that. We have a little girl." She was about the same age, and I was like, and that was it. It was like, "We're gonna go and we're gonna travel." And so I texted my wife and I said, "Do you wanna do this? Do you wanna sell all of our stuff and go hit the road?" And she said yes. And I was shocked, but yeah, we were both just right from the beginning, like, this is what we are going to do. And then we decided on an Airstream. We looked at school buses. At the time, schoolies were not what they are now, and there were a lot of campgrounds that didn't even allow them in. I don't know if that's still the case, but at the time, we just didn't want to be limited in where we could go. And so we were like, okay, let's maybe look at a pull behind, something that we can, we needed to safely have our kid in the car. And so like a big RV didn't feel like the right option. So like, let's do
Hmm.
a pull behind. And then we came across Airstreams, and it was like, yes, that's it. The vintage models especially really spoke to me. They were so iconic and so beautiful. And for two artists, the aesthetics of something is important. And we knew that we could make the interior whatever we wanted. So to start with that like solid exterior, that was so beautiful. That's where we landed.
Nice. And so what year Airstream, what size Airstream? Can you tell us a little bit more
Yeah.
about your rig?
hmm Yeah, so it was a 1957 Airstream Overlander. It was 27 feet long. It was a single axle, which was terrifying a lot of the time to have 27 feet on a single axle. But gosh, that you can't beat those beautiful vintage models.
Yeah. 1957. So what kind of, I would imagine that like axles and springs and wheels and tires and all kinds of things need to be upgraded or at least maintained on a trailer that old.
Yeah, absolutely. We had everything inspected. So we had, at the time, we knew nothing about any of this. I didn't even know how to use a drill properly.
Hmm.
So the fact that we run this business just shows how far we've come. But I mean, Ellen had a lot of building experience, but neither of us had experience with things like axles and leaf springs. And so we had this, we had the leaf springs inspected. I remember that, and they were fine. And then, but we upgraded. We put on new tires and repacked the bearings and all of that. So yeah, I mean, now every single project that comes through us would get everything new. We don't say, okay, yeah, this is good enough. We just change it out.
Yeah.
But at the time we were on such a small budget that we were like, okay, let's make it work. If we have to replace something, we will, but if we don't, let's not.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
So you were kind of piecemealing this trailer. And so when you say that any project that comes through you will have these things new, so do
Mhm.
you still kind of specialize in renovating these vintage Airstreams?
Yes. Yeah. That's primarily what we work with. Although right
Hmm.
now we are working with a new Airstream. We're working with a 2019, which
Oh,
was the
wow.
first time that we've done that, so that obviously everything was still, it had never even been used. So, it was a little bit different. But yeah, everything else that we have done has been, pre 1994.
Cool.
Yeah.
So with your particular Airstream, um, how long did it take to convert into, what you ended up traveling in?
It took us a year and then some.
Uh-huh.
It was a year from the day, it's so strange, but the day that we bought it was May 29th, 2014. And then the day that we moved into it, or I rather left Kentucky, was May
Mhm.
29th, 2015. It was like a year to the date, and it wasn't planned that way. It just happened to be that way. And then we continued to do some work on it, like as we were traveling, which was really challenging.
Yeah.
But there was still more things to do. Like when we left, we didn't have any plumbing done. We
Oh
didn't.
boy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I initially I did it wrong when I did the plumbing, and so we had to redo the plumbing.
Oh no.
Yeah,
So the thing I think that is aesthetically beautiful about Airstreams, other than that beautiful metal exterior, is something that also, to my eye, makes them very challenging looking to renovate, which is that there's like no 90-degree angles anywhere. Everything seems like
yeah,
everything is curved inside. So
yeah.
can you talk about some of the like special considerations or special things that you've learned about, converting these or renovating these trailers?
Well, there's a lot, but to speak to the curvature of the Airstreams, that was the big challenge when building. It's like
Hmm.
how do you build a cabinet that is up against a curve? And really what it comes down to is heavy use of a jigsaw.
Yeah.
You know, you and marking where it needs to be cut. At first we used a lot of templates,
Okay.
but now we have this tool that we can actually like mark the curve with.
Oh, cool.
But at first, we used a lot of cardboard templates and a lot of, trial and error, a washer with pencil stuck through it, to mark on because you can run that along the curve
Wow.
and then it's on the piece of plywood. Not explaining that very well, I don't think. But yeah, so that was huge. And then also, there's nothing is level. There's
Mm,
nothing is ever perfectly level in any sort of anything on wheels. So, we had to learn how to lower our standards of perfectionism a little bit and just be like, actually, that's going to look like it's level. It's going to function like it's level, but it's not actually level.
right. Right.
Yeah.
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 I
That
kind of remember
those
that.
were big things.
I remember that
Yeah.
when I was building my tiny house too. Like you
Yeah.
would kind of put a level to the floor and then see that was like slightly off. And then when you're putting in the countertop, you just kind of like, okay, let's just make sure it's off the same amount.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are just different considerations that we have to make when building a tiny home of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about, insulation, heating and cooling stuff? When these are renovated, do you generally rip them down to the frame and then kind of build back up on the inside?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everything is ripped down to the frame, and so it's like you can any one of our projects, like you'll be able to stand inside of it, and
Hmm.
your feet can be on the earth, but your legs are through the bars of the chassis, and then
Wow.
you're looking at the exposed.
Hmm.
They call them ribs on an Airstream.
Yep.
So all of this interior structure is ribs, and then the exterior skin.
Yep.
So yeah, we take everything down. We also now offer shell off renovations. So we actually, because we have a studio, the shell actually is raised up and the chassis is moved out. And then we have a welder come out and do any sort of repairs to the chassis. And then,
Wow.
the subfloor goes on. And then we put all the tanks in at that time. It's so much easier to do it that way, and also will make us more structurally sound
Right.
project, but it is more work to get the shell off
Uh-huh.
initially, but
Uh-huh.
it's so worth it.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like a big job, but that's cool that the shell can come off.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to come into the studio, and it's so fun when we have people over to look at what we're doing, and we're in that stage because they
Hmm.
come in and they're like, "Oh my gosh," there's it's like this, it's just hanging from the ceiling, and
Yeah.
then the rest of it is over to the side. It kind of blows people's minds a little bit to see it all dismantled like that, and then to know that it can be put back together and then be built out. And I think
Yeah.
that yeah, it's fun to see people's reactions to that.
Yeah. And so the exterior of these is it stainless steel or aluminum?
It's aluminum.
Aluminum. Okay.
It's aluminum.
So
Yeah.
it's very light and doesn't
It's
doesn't corrode.
very light. It doesn't, and it can polish up to a mirror shine, which is really beautiful.
Yeah.
That's That's actually one of my favorite tasks. I know that there are a lot of Airstream renovators that if they hear this, they're going to be like, "Are you nuts?" And but no, there's something really relaxing about moving that polisher over the skin until it, and just I mean, yeah, I love the work of it. I put my headphones in, I listen to podcasts, I
Yeah.
listen to music, and just go. And yeah, it's one of my favorite parts of all of it.
Cool. All right. Do you also enjoy painting?
I don't enjoy painting.
Okay.
I know. It doesn't make any sense. I do enjoy staining though. So,
All right.
yeah.
Close enough. I feel like there's like people who enjoy those kind of repetitive tasks and those who don't.
Mhm. Yeah, there are. And I think with painting though, I just make such a mess. Like I get paint
Yeah.
everywhere and all over me and I'm dripping it everywhere. With stain or polish, like it's a little less messy. So I
Yeah.
think that's probably why there's I don't fully fit into that category of liking those monotonous tasks.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
So speaking of paint, it looks like many of the Airstreams are, painted walls.
Mhm.
And what is it looks like a Luan or some kind of light, thin plywood that you use on the inside.
So actually, most of our projects are the original aluminum walls, and
Oh
we
wow.
just paint them.
Oh, okay.
But we also have done and are doing currently projects with what it's known as vendor board ply, which
Okay.
has the cross grain allows it to bend. So like you can
Mm-hmm.
literally pick up a piece of plywood and it's flexing.
Yeah.
And so that allows us to work with the curvature. So we did that on a project that we did in Arizona, and then we're doing that, or we have done that for our current clients.
Cool. Yeah.
And that's my favorite, actually, working with the vendor board ply and doing the wood walls inside. It's so warm.
Yeah.
And when you walk in, it just sort of feels like this hug. But most people want our sort of traditional white walls, which I get. It makes it feel really spacious inside the Airstream.
Yeah. It's a very iconic look.
Yeah, absolutely. Hmm.
Yeah. And so what does I guess there are lots of different lengths, but like, what did your Airstream weigh?
I think 3,500 pounds, if I'm remembering. We actually have lived in three different Airstreams. So,
Okay.
sometimes I'm like, I have to really think about it. It was a while ago. It's been a lot of sleeps since 2014.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's significant because what was the length that you said that yours was?
27 feet.
Yeah, 27
Yeah.
feet. I mean, like a 27-foot tiny house on wheels is going to weigh 12 to 15,000 pounds.
Yeah. So much heavier.
Yeah.
Although our current Airstream that we're not traveling
Yeah.
anymore, full time anyway, but our current Airstream is like 9,000 pounds and
Okay.
it's 30 feet long.
Okay.
So, it's a little heavier, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a really appealing option if you do want to travel more frequently
Yeah.
than a tiny house on wheels for sure.
Yeah, although we do have a dream of building a small house,
Mhm.
probably under 1,000 square feet somewhere at some point.
Nice.
It's been a long time dream, and so I find myself sketching
Mhm.
plans pretty regularly for that house.
Nice. Nice. And
Yeah.
do you envision like staying there all the time or just kind of that being a home base for further travel?
Home base for further travel. So our daughter is 12
Okay.
now. So when we first got on the road, she was 5.
Mhm.
And now she's 12 and she's going to be in middle school next year. And so right now we're really here. We're staying put because she is really happy having school and friends and a social life, and she does all these activities. So right now, like we're not traveling as much as we
Mhm.
thought we would be
Mhm.
when we settled down and bought a house. But I think that in the future we probably will again, at least in the summers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So have vintage Airstreams become really hard to find? Have they, as the popularity of renovating them, have the
Yeah,
costs
I
gone
mean,
up?
you can still find them,
Yeah.
but yes, the costs have gone up considerably. Just as an example, we bought our first Airstream for $4,000 in 2014, for a 1957. And then last year we bought a 1978 Tradewind,
Hmm.
and it was $20,000.
Wow. Yeah. Cause
And, $20,000 to gut something. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was curious before the show and I just popped onto Craigslist in Vermont and just searched Airstream. There's a vintage that it doesn't say what year it is, but it's $22,000 and it looks like it needs to be gutted in terms of, it's just the original interior.
Yeah, it's sort of unreal because, we never really thought that we would. I know that we played a part in that. We played this. My wife and I played a part in help popularizing this, and so it's so silly to me to have to pay that much for something that I kind of was a contributor to. Like, if not to like toot my own horn or anything, but we were kind of on the leading edge of it. It wasn't this popular thing. Airstreams have always been well loved, but I think this sort of modern trend of renovating Airstreams, we were part of making that known and popular and exciting, and now to see the prices or have to pay the prices for something that we're just going to gut, it's pretty intense.
Yeah. Now, are there other vintage trailers that were built this way, like with that aluminum outside, or is it only Airstreams?
It's not only Airstreams. Actually, if you look at my book, there are a couple of Spartans, which were produced for a very limited time in the, I don't remember when, I'm sorry, I don't remember the dates, but they were produced for a really limited time. And so they're harder to find, but they are stunning. I would love to renovate a Spartan at some point because I'm just obsessed with the way that they look. So that's one that's coming to mind, right off the bat. There's Silver Streaks. There are other aluminum trailers. Airstream really took the market, though. From the history that I have read, Airstream sort of took the market.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the statistic is something. It might be different now. I don't know, but when we first got an Airstream, one of the things that drew us to it was I read that 70% of all Airstreams that were ever made since the 1930s are still on the road today. And, so that was I was like, wow, then it must be pretty well made.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's really neat. Yeah.
I asked John and Finn Kernahan of United Tiny House Association what they love about their precision temp hot water heaters. And here's what they told me.
Hey, Ethan, this is John and Finn Kernahan with United Tiny House Association.
We organize tiny house best.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
First and foremost.
We have a total of 3 precision temp on-demand hot water heaters. The thing we really like about these, and folks know this, I think they picked this up on Finn and I, if we don't like something, you'll never hear us talk about it. So the 2 things we noticed that we noticed and experienced immediately, they took painstaking effort to make sure that it was done right and installed. And so that was pretty cool right there. The other thing is the continuous on-demand hot water that just ran forever without any fluctuations or anything. I can't imagine an application, especially in our environment and our lifestyle of being the nomad, transportable, mobile, tiny lifestyle where one of these units aren't good to use.
And I suppose, the original interiors probably aren't still in use, but being able to just strip it down to the aluminum that never rusts. Are the ribs of aluminum too?
The ribs are aluminum. Yeah.
That's so cool.
We do know, just sort of through Instagram, there is a man in New Mexico who restores vintage Airstreams.
Yeah.
So he's not doing what we're doing where we're putting in all new like modern amenities. He's actually refurbishing what is already there. And I really admire his dedication to his craft because I feel like that would be far more challenging in a lot of ways to have to bring it back to its former glory.
Right. And to either find or build the interior to match what was there before.
What was there. Yeah. I really admire that a lot.
Yeah. No, it's certainly anybody who does that kind of restoration work, that's like a whole nother level of attention to detail.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, somebody who is looking for a vintage Airstream, do you have any tips of like what to look for in terms of like if you're shopping for a vintage one?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're planning on, completely gutting it and taking it down to the chassis and the frame, and like what we do,
Uh-huh.
really what I would advise is just to find something that doesn't have any major dents on the outside. Because if you're going to be doing all of that work anyway, if you're going to replace windows, like you might as because you really never know what you're digging into anyway until you start digging in.
Mhm.
So that would be my biggest piece of advice is just don't get anything that has large dents because that's when it's really expensive to have professionals replace the exterior skin.
Okay. And can that be done in
Yeah.
pieces? Like if there's
Yes.
an
Yes.
okay. Because it
Yeah.
looks
Yeah.
like they are kind of sections of this aluminum.
Yeah. They are sections of aluminum and they're held together by buck rivets on the exterior. The interior skins are generally attached with pop rivets,
Okay.
and then the exterior is buck rivets, which are supposed to be, that they're more watertight. I
Okay.
mean, I'm gonna air quote here, watertight. Rivets are still there's Airstreams are not leak proof.
Right.
That would be my other piece of advice. Do not ever let a seller tell you that Airstream doesn't leak. It does.
Okay.
They don't know.
Okay. And
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that about from many people who have, just bought any RV
hmm
to live in temporarily or travel in. It's leaking.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we have to remember that when you're hauling a trailer down the road, like everything is shifting and moving. It's literally like an earthquake inside. And
Yeah.
so if you're putting your rig through that all the time, like things are going to loosen up and open up and you're going to have leaks.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so what do you do in the shop do you try to reseal those junctions between the panels or
Yeah, it's a little bit more
yeah.
complicated than
Yeah.
that. The biggest piece of our work is waterproofing though and making
Mhm.
sure that everything is sealed up before we put it back together.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there are a lot of things that go into that. Sometimes that is replacement of windows, and sometimes we need to replace the air conditioner,
Mhm.
so it's like waterproofing is more than just inspecting and sealing up every single rivet or
Yeah.
line between where the aluminum meets and overlaps. It's the longest, most tedious process for us.
Got it. Wow. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I would imagine that anybody who's gutting one of these would want to do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's really no point in building up or out in a Airstream that is leaking or has a, rusted chassis,
Right.
So
It's
that's why we really encourage people to, to dig down as far as they can go and then build back up because that's the only way that you can know that you are safe, that it's roadworthy and watertight.
right. You're going to end up just ruining all the work, all the beautiful woodwork that you do if you let it leak into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um I'm curious, like the new Airstreams that are being produced, are they like, is that the same company as before? Or is that like,
Yeah.
okay, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
they,
Yeah, I'm sure that Airstream is really enjoying the fact that Airstreams are so popular.
yeah, no, I
Yeah.
was looking at the prices for new Airstreams are pretty like, I was a little bit shocked. I mean, they're like
Yeah.
50, 60, 70, 80, $90,000.
Yeah, or more.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just like, in some parts of the country, you can buy a house for that. Not many, but some.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
So how many Airstreams are you renovating per year?
Right now, we are trying to do just one per year.
Okay.
There were times where we had talked about expanding and having a big team, and
hmm
it's just not the way we want to take things. We really like to do things ourselves and take our time. It used to be
hmm
that we were moving at a faster clip, but we found that that was really unsustainable. I mean, it
hmm
is really demanding physical labor, and managing the budgets and working with clients and doing the design and doing all, like
Yeah.
it
It's
was
a lot.
too much to keep, for just the two of us to be turning over 2 or 3 Airstreams a year.
Yeah.
So we move at a slower pace now, and it's much more conducive to us having a healthy work life balance. because that is a thing. It is possible to achieve that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's cool that you're kind of certainly a boutique shop, doing one a year.
Yeah.
Finding the right person to work with and designing this custom Airstream.
Yeah, it's really important that we have a good relationship with our clients. And so we do choose who we work with. And because it is such a personal process and it is a year, of their lives and our lives. And so we want to make sure that we have this like really great working relationship. And we are really thankful. We have some really, really great clients.
Nice. Well, your book, The Modern Caravan, is beautiful, and I was hoping maybe you could, the format of the book is that you profile several different, usually couples who are traveling in Airstreams or other mobile homes, for lack of a better term, caravans.
Yeah.
Could you maybe tell us about one or two of those profiles?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first people that are coming to mind would be my friends Laura Guidry and Mark Bilbao.
Okay. Mark
is actually an architecture student and a furniture designer, and Laura is a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And I chose them for the book because they were doing something that I had not seen anyone else do. They really worked with the curves of the Airstream. And so like when you're looking at in the book and you're looking at the pictures, they integrated curvature into the build itself. And so there's this arched doorway and it was so fluid and interesting. And it looked like a home, but it also still felt like an Airstream. I was seeing at the time that there was this trend where we were going to where it looked like you weren't even in an Airstream anymore. It was like, and they were doing something that was different and set apart. And I just was like, I want to meet these people. I want to know why they made the choices that they made. And it turned out that we got along really great and they are wonderful friends. And I actually work, like Mark does some of our drawings and things for us now for the business. So I hire him to do those things. And so but yeah, hearing their story, they did their build on this like micro budget, which also really spoke to me because our first build was done, for, pennies, it felt like at times. And so I really loved getting to meet them and talking with them about design and what it was like to build in a tiny space.
Yeah. Are they the one they bought their Airstream for like $600 or something, right?
Yeah, it was like a few $100s. It was,
oh my gosh,
just good memory. But yeah, they I still can't get over that.
Yeah.
Although I have bought an Airstream for $300. So.
Wow.
Long time ago.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say long time ago. Or just if somebody doesn't really know what they have or just wants to get rid of it fast,
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to look around for those deals.
We found it while we were traveling with our first Airstream, and it was abandoned, and so we just started asking around to find out whose it was, and the guy ran a seaweed snack food company. And he's like, I just don't really need it. You can just take it for $300. And Ellen called me, my wife called me, and she's like, we have to take it, right? Like, I don't know what we're going to do with it. We've got to take this, right?
Take it.
Yeah. So we did.
Yeah. How did you get it home?
Well, so we were at a campground, and so we just paid to park it there, and then we turned around and we sold it to some friends of ours for $5,000, and they put some work into it, and then they sold it for $20,000. And it's like it just, but it didn't stay rotting
right
in a forest, right? It was
everyone's a winner.
It just kept moving through different hands, and it actually was being used again, and that's all we really wanted was for it to be used.
Yeah, I'm waiting personally for the like post-pandemic glut of vans that I'm like hoping are gonna exist, because it seemed like for a while you couldn't buy a like cargo van to convert because like everybody was buying them, but
everybody was buying them.
I think there's gonna be like a the tide is going to ebb and
Do you think so? I've been wondering that. Like, are we going to see people start to be like, okay, well, maybe this isn't what I thought it was going to be. It looks different than it does on Instagram. Like, are we going to see? I mean, I am wondering that.
I personally think that there will be just because like, and we're already seeing people coming back to cities who like left for the pandemic, and they're remembering, oh, I like living in a city, and I think that for vans, I think there are a lot of vans that were purchased during quarantine to, hey, let's hit the road, but you know, they'll be sitting and rotting, hopefully not rotting too much, but
hopefully not rotting too much. Yeah, there was we got a lot of inquiry in like summer of 2020 through summer 2021. Our inquiries definitely increased. And I did notice that most of them said something along the lines of, I want to seize the day, or if I can't, if I have to be in lockdown, then I'm going to go be in quote unquote lockdown out where I'm not around anyone else. And so I am sort of wondering, I was talking with an old road life friend, and she and her partner used to be in an Airstream, and then they were in a van. Now they're in a sailboat. And really cool. And she was wondering the same thing. She's like, are we going to see this trend die down? And I said, you know what, though, I've been saying for years that I'm afraid that the trend is going to go away because now my livelihood is built on it, and it doesn't go away. I just see more and more people hitting the road, which is, I'm not sure how I feel about that actually.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's ever going to go away either, but there'll be, and at one per year, I think you'll be able to find somebody every year.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I
love, could you talk a little bit about the bowler trailer in your book? Cause I love those little, it's like the tiny little one, the little bean.
They look like a little egg.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one, I think if I'm remembering right, it's 13 feet.
Yeah.
And it's teeny tiny. And the owner she doesn't live in it. She just takes it out to go camping and go on adventures. But yeah, I love bowlers. And like the casitas, and what's the other one? I'm struggling to remember. A scamp. My in-laws have one.
Scamps. Yeah.
The scamps are really, really cute. My in-laws bought their scamp after we got our Airstream, and they were like, oh, wait, maybe we could do something like that too. And they don't travel full time, but they take it out and go camping and everything. And I love those little fiberglass trailers. I think they're so darling.
Yeah, they are
darling. I would love to do a renovation in one.
Yeah, and they're also fiberglass, much easier to repair yourself than aluminum.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
As somebody who rides and breaks and dents surfboards occasionally, I know that it's easier to repair fiberglass than it is aluminum.
Yes, fiberglass. Actually, we do custom fiberglass showers now in our builds.
Okay.
And so we work with fiberglass in that way. And and it's, it's a pretty stinky, time-consuming process, but the results can be really, really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Michael Newstead earlier. Is there any other people, books, YouTube channels, things that that either influenced you or inspired you or helped you when you were kind of starting out that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So before we had decided to travel, we were obsessed with Lloyd Kahn and his books. And so we had Tiny Home Simple Shelter on our bookshelf already, and had just would pour through that book and make notes. And so that was a huge influence for us. We also really we had a book on nomadic. It was called Nomadic Furniture. And it was about all of this, furniture that you could build that would have multiple uses. So that was a really big thing. YouTube was not a thing in 2014. I mean, it was a thing, but not so much for, now you can search van life or Airstream renovation, and, there are tons of channels and videos that didn't exist. So when we were starting this, we had to really sort of piece it all together and figure out how to do it on our own. And I think that's one thing about, today's nomads. There's less of that. And I'm really grateful that we did it when we had to figure it out on our own. I know that might sound strange to say, but you know, it made it really special that we did it without a lot of influence from other people.
Well, where can people find you and your book?
Okay, so you can find me in a couple different places. TheModernCaravan.com is my business, and you can find the book there as well. You can find me on Instagram as The Modern Caravan. Also, I am on Instagram, like my personal, like more personal side of life and writing is at Birch and Pine. And then you can also find me at kateoliver.co.
Nice. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Kate Oliver, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today.
Thanks so much, Ethan. This was fun.
Thank you so much to Kate Oliver for being a guest on the show today. You can find the show notes, including links to the Modern Caravan and some of my favorite photos from the book at thetinyhouse.net/212. Again, that's thetinyhouse.net/212. Well, that's all for this week. I'm your host, Ethan Waldman, and I'll be back next week with another episode of the Tiny House Lifestyle Podcast.